Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Beginner Boost, 7 p.m. Day 1. Cheers. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. We got a lot to cover tonight. It ended up taking me a couple of hours last night to, happy Cinco de Mayo. That's really fun. How's it going, John Ma? How do you say that? Wanma VFX? And Dapper King. And Robbie. All you good people. I am going to leave that up and running so I can just shift to it. That'd probably be a good thing to do. We have a lot to cover, so let's go to it. Again, if you don't know already, it's in the URLs down in the chat or in the title. GitHub.com rwxrob/boost. That's where we'll be doing it. Just a reminder, we're going to be recording videos on and off tonight and taking breaks in between, so kind of formal during the video and kind of informal off the video, kind of in the Pomodoro method, and it's very organic. We're just kind of going with where we're at. So last we left off, we were on, where were we on? I've been modifying this, so I did yesterday's stuff. So why you set up the services. Hopefully everybody's got, everything that we talked about yesterday done and set up so we can go forward. Docker and GitHub are going to be your most important things, and you can't have those emails, so you'll need those. It's funny, about at least five to 10 people asked me today, when does it start? All the same questions that I talked about in my style, like telling you to go do your own research. And it was funny. I think somebody was chuckling at it with me this morning after yesterday's talk. So just a reminder, if you can answer your own questions, do the effort to answer your own question before you ask a question, either to me or to somebody else. There's nothing wrong with questions as long as you haven't just asked them because you're lazy and don't want to do your own research. In that case, don't ask it. Go do the research. All right, so we have a number of things. This section, learning how to learn, was tough for me. I mean, it was the last time I did this particular section. Hey, good morning or good evening, AVR, ARV. This section here is. I'm just going to tell you, going into it, I struggled a lot because I had to really pare it back. It was this particular section was a lot longer, and there is a series about becoming an autodidact that I've already done. There's a playlist out there that you can go find on my current YouTube that's about 6 and 7 hours long, and it was kind of loosely organized. And I like that. I mean, I like that. Most of that landed into the stories here. There's gonna be some storytelling tonight. If you're here because you want to get going with Docker and you want to start coding, that's not what we're gonna do tonight. I doubt very seriously we're gonna make it there within 2 hours. Hopefully we will get to the part about Zettelkasten and capturing your thoughts as knowledge, and give you a little tour of GitHub and how to do that through using the graphic interface. Hopefully we'll get to that tonight. So. And I don't know how much of this is going to be per video. I do want to kind of keep it modular and everything like that. So I just know that I need to break it down, and I know that we need to cover these methods, but I don't know each video. The part of the problem was I ended up with 6 videos yesterday, and it took a long time to get the videos ready and publish them. So I don't know how big of the chunk I want to make. So we'll have to figure that out. Hey, thanks for the subs, everyone. So it seems like, I tell you what, we'll wait till 7:04, 7:05 for the latecomers to come in. Normally I start right on time. I'm going to try to keep doing that for everybody. But why not give them 5 minutes? Yeah. Let me think about this here. So, I think we're just going to make one short video for each one of these things. People have told me that that's the easiest way for them to digest the whole videos. Of course, the whole VOD will be up for you to read and watch and all of that. But I think we're going to do one at a time. So this first one is going to be very interactive, and yeah. Stop paying for overage. Stop paying. These kind of go together. We should probably do that. We should say problems with traditional education. Let's put these over here like that. That's it. That's not one. Where is it? I think I moved on it. We didn't talk about Paulo Freire at all, and I don't see him on here. And we talked about wanting to learn, and we kind of rolled that one. We kind of swept over that one. Yeah, we did. That stuff is in Who's This For? People who want to learn. So I'm going to actually touch on this here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this here. These might be their own videos too. We'll see. Yeah. There's another one too. How's it going, Graph Guy? So I don't want to get it too big. I don't want to make it, I think this kind of goes under this one. Okay. I mean, this is really... All right. That's good. And then Zettelkasten as Markdown. Yeah, we'll do these things on their own as their own. I don't know how many of these are going to be on videos. We're going to go into it. So if we have to reorganize it, we can. That's kind of what we're doing here. Hey, how's it going, Brilliant? Brilliant. So I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm corrupting the youth. I'm going to put that in here. They really are, but they have to be dealt with. This is why it's so hard. I'm not trying to keep it fun. So, Let me go get my books here. I already covered this stuff, so I don't know how well this is going to work. You think it is? It is an important topic. Yeah. I'm going to put some follow Ferry on this. Unless everybody think, we have to do it. All right. So this is going to be, I don't know. We'll just jump in. Let's just jump in. Yeah, I agree. Agreed. Puff, you know what? That's a great thing to start with. So this first topic, let's go ahead and start it. And I haven't saved any of this, so I'm going to make a new one. Wait, what did I do? All right. So the topic, let's do the first topic as problems with traditional education. I don't want to lose you here, so let me try something new here. I'll try something different because I don't want to lose your comment. Problems. There. All right. And we're going to go ahead and put a marker in this. All right. So this is a tough topic to begin day one. It's funny because we're doing it on Cinco de Mayo, which, you know what is really great is that that's always going to be the case. We're always going to be doing the lesson about questioning authority and the conversation in the beginner boost on Cinco de Mayo because of May 4th, because May 4th is the day we always start our boost, which is really appropriate when you think about it because Cinco de Mayo. And we're going to talk a lot about that. I mean, if there's the Latin American people in Latin America, they really understand revolution and oppression, and more than a lot of other people, I think, in the world. And so we're gonna jump right in here. And so happy Cinco de Mayo to you. And we're gonna go ahead and talk about this. But as Puff Tuck says, this particular topic is one of the most important topics we will ever talk about. We're only going to give it 2 hours probably today. It's the only day we're going to talk about this. But we have to talk about education in general, the act of learning, how do we do it? And all of this applies to anyone. It applies to anyone, anywhere, who learns. And that, so, it's going to be one of those things that you are hopefully going to take away with you. There's no way I can inject this in you. That's very much against the whole point of learning in the first place. And buenos dias. But it is a serious topic, and it is an important thing that everyone understand it. So let's get in there and get dirty with it. Tacos Tequila and taking down tyranny. It's really great that it happens to be on Cinco de Mayo. I'm really happy about that. And May 1st is May Day. There's a lot of revolution stuff that happens at the beginning of May. So we're gonna start this first segment. No more than 25 minutes. We're gonna limit ourselves here. Is going to be we're going to talk about the problems of traditional education, and I'm gonna, as usual, I'm gonna be pulling stuff out of my head. Sometimes not in any particular order. I mean, this is stuff that I've studied a lot, and I'd rather not formalize it too much. I'd rather keep it in discussion topic. But the reason I smile on this one is because this is a really, really dangerous topic to cover. I mean, this is seriously dangerous stuff. Teaching people to ask why got my wife kicked out of Catholic school, got me kicked out of the Mormon church, that and other stuff. But, it's a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing to ask why, to question power, to speak truth to power in any form. It can be your family, it can be your religion, it can be your society, it can be, just the nature of existence. And it's really, really dangerous. And I started by saying this, I mentioned this the other day, and I'm going to keep telling you, go watch the documentary on Netflix or Amazon Prime, I can't remember which, called The Geniuses, Genius of Ancient Times. Is that right? The Geniuses of the Ancient Age, or the Classical Age, or something like that. And it goes through, and she's walking around Greece, and she talks about Socrates. And we talked about Socratic method yesterday, and how playing the fool is how I try to draw you out and have you answer your own questions. But Socrates would sit on the edge of the place where he could. Thanks for the link. He would sit on the edge of the place where you could be. He was banished from like lots of different places. You gotta understand, Greece was like worse than the Deep South, or I don't know, Sunni Muslim territory. It was so radically dogmatized religiously. We're not going to talk about that right now. So we're in a video, but it sounds really cool. But when you think about what happened to Socrates, he was at a time, he was questioning why, when the Greeks at the time, and they talk about this in this video, they were obsessed with the dogma of religion. They believed all of that stuff literally. It wasn't some Disney show where they, made an animated version of it. They believed that stuff. They believed it as literally as, you think of your favorite, religious deity that people believe in and will kill you over. They believed in that. And they were actually in decline largely because of it, I think. And so they ended up getting kicked, their asses kicked by, the people from Sparta. And then they blamed the whole thing on Socrates, because Socrates they made a play about him and everything, because Socrates was causing everybody to question their values. And this is the essence of popularism. And I don't want to get into popularism, but you can't understand education without understanding oppression, because as Paulo Freire talks about, I'm kind of all over, but we're going to get into that. Oppression starts in the home, and oppression is something that we are raised with. So because the powers that people want it to be that way. And so that's what it was. Socrates was there. He said, we're gonna I want everybody to start questioning, asking their own questions and figuring things out for themselves, and that caused all kinds of problems. So, he was accused of corrupting the youth and everything. Ultimately, he had to kill himself. But I want to return to the thing about populism, because we are living through populism right now. And I don't want to make this into a political thing, but it's really hard not to get a little bit political about this. So recently, all of the world has been experiencing an upsurgence in populism. And if you want to understand this, you can see Saving Capitalism. There's a documentary from Robert Reich about this. And he talks specifically about the different political climates and how they ebb and flow. And at the time in Socrates' day, it was a time of really intense populism, which means that they were having troubles, and so they would look to find, they would either look for, as Reich talks about, they would either find somebody who was strong, or somebody who was was nice, and they were outside of the regular mold. And that was when nationalism was high and everything. So the Greeks and Socrates, when all that was going on, they had just experienced this, they just got their butts really kicked by Spartan, people from Sparta, and they they needed to find an excuse. They needed to find an excuse for why had this all gone bad. And they didn't want to say that it was because of all of their dogmatism and other stuff that was the cause that they had abandoned progressivism, and thinking. Progressivism isn't some, political ideology. Progressivism is wanting to learn more and learn, this is why, science is not political. It can be politicized, but it's about looking forward to seeing what can we learn and what's new. And when you start to do that, there's the conservative people who don't want to look forward. They like the way it used to be. And there's people who want to learn more and consider what things could be, even if they test something and it turns out to be wrong, and then they go back to something else. So what happened was they blamed the fact that they were starting to ask questions and progress as the reason that they ended up getting beat up. And then, so they always do this. They always find somebody to lynch, basically, and say, see. They did this with socialism in America, by the way. So America during the 50s and the 60s was a rampantly socialist country for a while, like after the Depression. Actually, no, I think I'm getting it wrong. Bottom line is that there was a time when FDR fought against the Depression, and America had social systems in place that kept us, upstanding and everything. And then everything kind of went to pot, and then they ended up blaming us for being too socialist, and so blah, blah. It's really complicated. What does it have to do with education? Because every single time that people ask the question why, we get in trouble. Socrates got killed, and people start talking about the decline of society and stuff like that. So I know I'm already 15 minutes into this one, but maybe let's just say this. You can't disconnect education from politics. And I wish you could, but I'm going to try really hard. And here we talk about Pink Floyd. We don't need no education. If you haven't studied any Pink Floyd, there's a lot of messages going on in that. And he's talking about, the education system that we have adopted. The traditional education system that we have now is something that came to us after the war era, that was designed to educate people as fast as possible in sort of a factory mode. And actually, Sir Ken Robinson talks about this in his book, Out of Our Minds. He was knighted for his work in reforming education in England. And so he's got a lot to say about that. He literally says that our creativity is beaten out of us when we're young. His specific thing that he says is that we have to address creativity individually. Everybody learns differently, multiple intelligences, that kind of thing. And so we need to open up our minds and our schools to different ways of learning. And right now, during the wartime, it was like if somebody didn't learn that way because they couldn't learn in the specific way they were being taught to learn, I love that Harry Potter, where they're trying to teach him how to pass the test. And they give him the textbook in hand. Well, when are we going to learn spells? Hermione says. And he goes, why are we need spells? We don't need it. We need a good theoretical knowledge, not practical. Some good videos there. And so, in fact, I really, really love Harry Potter. I have problems with J.K. Rowling a little bit, but I really, really love that particular Harry Potter because it really gets into the problems with education. The more theoretical it is, the less actual hands-on learning is happening, and the less total learning is happening. And by the way, how does Harry Potter fix it? How do they fix it? They have somebody who had to be thrown into the mix, who happens to have the skills because he had to survive, and he shares with everyone his skills. That's true education. That's the way humans have been learning since the dawn of time. But there are a lot of powers that don't like that because they lose control. And Pink Floyd sings about it. Paulo Freire in the 1968 or so wrote, the book Oppression. He wrote Oppression Starts in the Home, and he wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed. That book is very, very thick and deep. It's very thin and very dense, I should say. It's very, very hard to read, but this is a guy who lived through several revolutions and survived, and he talks about how important it is for people doing the teaching to be on par with the people that they're teaching. And it's not, he specifically called out banker style education, which means, open their head, deposit the stuff, and then close their head, and now you're good to go. And he makes the point that only teachers, Dumbledore's army, only teachers are the ones doing the learning in a banker-style education. And a banker-style education is what, Dumbledore's army, if they hadn't formed it, that's what they were trying to do. Sit there. I love it too because did you see how all the Slytherin all get awards? Did you see how the paternalistic oppressor makes the people who are totally fine not learning a thing feel like heroes? That's the system we have to watch out for because it can creep in. It can creep in all the time. And the people who are controlling the system who want to, for whatever reason, they don't want you to learn things. They don't want you to ask why. They don't want you to question the status quo. They want you to be good consumers, sit back and do what you're told. And you don't have to be a hippie to recognize the value of challenging that approach. That's not the way learning happens. It's scientifically proven not to be the way, but people will still love to talk about that. So, this is, and I'm not saying grades are bad, but grades are certainly not an indicator. Some teachers that won't even give grades. And it's not one of these hippie things like everybody gets a gold star. No, that's not it. It's still about merit, but it's about putting the person in charge of their own learning, facilitating their learning, and being their peer. Paulo Freire's most important point in his entire book is you cannot teach anybody anything. The first thing you need to do is you need to help them realize, and you can't really do this except for just associating with them, and you need to put them in a situation where they can start to see the world around them. You need to open their eyes without, forcefully doing it. It's a very delicate balance. That's why we don't do it, because it's hard, and then you have to realize that they have to see what's going on. They have to put the learning into their own perspective. And then you observe. If you want to help them, you're the facilitator. You're not the sit there and listen to what I have to say person. You're like, well, how do you learn best? If anything, your primary job is to help motivate them to learn. Consumer of online courses in any way, which I've been guilty. Yeah. By the way, let's talk about that for a second because we have a little bit more time. The reason that we love the free code camps and the certificate for this and the Udemy courses and the education and the grades and the graduate certificates and all of that stuff is because they make us feel cozy, because they remove us from the uncomfortable position of taking responsibility for our learning. We're giving somebody else, a lot of the time, I bet you, because half the people that are here, they're here because they want to hear somebody tell them what to do. And they don't want to be told, you don't need to be told what to do, go figure it out. They don't like to hear that. But that's exactly what Socrates did. Socrates spent his entire time telling people, particularly young people, because he couldn't do it with the older people, that they are the ones in charge. And they would be trying to figure out their way through life. And he would just reflect back their questions to them and help them, guide them at playing the fool, letting them take the authority. When's the last time you've been to a traditional education scenario where the teacher played like a fool and just let you answer your own questions? Why don't schools do this? Because they can't make money. Okay. It's very rare. I mean, there, but this is the problem. I'm not slamming on every school. I happen to be partial to Montessori approach. Even though they make lots of money by putting a brand on something that should have been done anyway, so if we could organize a natural learning process so that people learn in their own way, I think of Harry Potter again. I mean, I think of Neville had to come around to learning how to do the spell in his way, and every one of those kids in Dumbledore's army, they're all learning in a different way. They're all practicing in the corner in their own way. But they're coming to the same conclusion. They're finding out what their strengths are. They're performing basically the scientific method on themselves, so they are actually, learning some of this stuff. Yeah. There is nothing wrong with wanting somebody to help you learn or wanting some help or not knowing your way. But in conclusion, what I really just want to make the point of is I really believe that a mentor or, even a guide is the proper term. I don't think Socrates would have ever called himself a teacher. He didn't even like writing words because he wanted to be so available to so many people. I mean, he is like quintessentially, you know, and if you want a fun take on what Socrates might have been like, go watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's an old flick, but it's really good, and it's got Keanu Reeves in it. And some people actually, I found out about Paulo Freire because there is a wisecrack about Paulo Freire's position on participatory education and how Bill and Ted may actually, instead of being deep or dumb, it's actually deep, and it's a commentary on modern education. Because what did Bill and Ted do? Bill and Ted. So I'm gonna close with this. So Bill and Ted in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure are, these potheads, they can't play in a band and they got to save the world. And, George Carlin, the fact that George Carlin is the central mentor in this thing says a lot about this movie and its background. George Carlin, if you ever watch some of his writing or his skits about society and the problem with suppression, you might understand a little bit more where Bill and Ted's coming from. So you take these two, let's tell his story, but you take Bill and Ted, and they're having trouble. They can't really learn. They're going to fail. And Bill's going to get sent off to military school, traditional education at its finest, right? And there's going to be all kinds of disaster if they don't pass their history tests. So what happens? So to save the day, Rufus appears, and he has this telephone booth, and what does he do? They get in the telephone booth, and Rufus has to help them because the whole world is going to end because they save the world later, and it's fictional, of course. But if they don't pass this test, so how does Rufus help them learn? So Rufus, all he does is he tells them, if you don't do this, the whole world's going to collapse. This is a bigger deal than you think it is. You've got to learn how to learn, and we're going to help you do that. So he teaches them how to use the machine. He takes them to the first place, shows them it's very it's very like mentored education, takes them to the first place, which happens to have the princesses in it. And and it plops down and the machine is there. And then the entire movie is Bill and Ted experiencing life. Yeah, the Socratic method, a part of it was teach them, logos and rhetoric and stuff, and then let them go out into the world. The Finnish education system, which has been overwhelmingly recognized as the number one in the world, and you can go do your own research on this. They when they ask point blank, what are you doing to be so successful? And they say, do less. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is the one I'm talking about. So Rufus did the same thing with Bill and Ted. He said, get out of the way. So what they end up doing, and I won't give away the movie, but they meet all of these famous figures from history. They kind of experience their world. They're like, oh, dude, it's like, it's hilarious. I mean, it's so classic at this point. And they redid it too. They redid it. And then they end up saving the day. I won't say how, by having the best possible presentation at the end. But the reason that they learned so much is because they actually experienced it. They were interacting with the people from the history, and they were controlling their own learning method. And the method wasn't reading from a bunch of books. Now, they did read books. There's a moment in there where they do read. It's not like they can't read. But the point I think that they're making is, there's more going on here. And that's actually where I learned about Paulo Freire. So let me make two recommendations for you as we wrap up this little segment. One of them is the Wisecrack video called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Deep or Dumb, and the actual movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is really fun. It's really retro. Watch it with your parents if you want. You'll have a good time. There's we watched the whole series quite a bit. It's really fun because it's very, very happy kind of family movie. And would it be possible to add a recommendation to the book list? Yes, please. Send me all the links if you want to. Put them in the Discord, however you want to do this. We'll put this when we take our break. I have one more point to talk about on this. As we end up our rant against traditional education. Okay, stop overpaying for education. I don't know why we do it. I want to do it myself. But for some reason, we think that if we pay money, it's going to make the education better. And there are people who are taking advantage of this. They are taking advantage of this, and they are ripping money out of us that we don't have. You still have to pay money for good education. You can't get good education for free unless, let's put it this way, you can get good education for free. It just takes more of your time than it does paying somebody. Now, if you find somebody to mentor you, I'm not saying disregard, disregard people's, personal commitments and stuff like that. You should pay for people's time. But I'm not saying like paying $250,000 for a college education is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You can get in and out of college with a college education that will get you a job anywhere for under 10 grand if you go through the right route. I've done other videos on this, WGU, community college. So I'm gonna leave you with some stuff to do some more research. Again, beginner booster for me to tell you stuff to go research on your own. And another thing I want you to there's Adam Ruins College. Okay. There's something called Adam Ruins College. It's a small little segment on YouTube. You can go watch it yourself. And I want you to make sure you watch that before you get way over into debt for college. Obviously, you can't get away from college in some cases, but according to Adam Ruins College and the statistics and stuff that they've collected there, which I think are substantial, you do need a college education for lots of reasons, particularly in the States. College is free if you're international. A lot of this is related only to America. But internationally, yeah, you're going to college, right? Consider the idea of going to college abroad and paying to live in Germany and learning a foreign language at the same time. But whatever you do, don't go into massive debt for education. There are so many other options. You don't need to do that. Colleges go through a large, and that's another one. The college loan one is a different one. That's a different one. They just two of them. There's two of them. Whether you should go to college or not, and the college loan thing. And colleges right now, they talk about how college, Adam Ruins Everything talks about how college education prices skyrocketed. And it's largely because they have to to get that money, they keep escalating there's no checks and balances on the whole system. It's just out of control. And a lot of the professors are tenured, so there's no real motivation. I mean, they're good people. There's fantastic tenured professors that I know, but the fact of the matter is there's no financial accountability in a tenured professor to provide education for you. At the end of the day, a college is an organization that's there to make money. Now, they can say all they want, how they are there for you and all of that, but they wouldn't pay the money that they do for football teams and for esports now in order to attract you to get your money to pay them if they weren't a for-profit institution. They are some of the most evil things on planet Earth, and they need to be checked. They're also some of the most amazing places on Earth. And I had an amazing time learning from my college, but I was really lucky, and I went to a church school because I was Mormon, and we'll talk about that during my stories time coming up. But the point is that I'm not telling you to just walk out of college and don't do anything. If you make sure you have a plan, but don't be afraid. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about becoming an autodidact. You can do this. You can actually learn this yourself. You can set up a plan for yourself. You don't need my permission, and we're going to get into that. So I'm getting into the next video. But be okay with questioning the status quo. Be okay with asking, why are we doing this? Be okay with that. Ask why. Annoy people. Annoy your teachers. If they tell you to say yes sir or no sir, you're gonna have to learn how to learn despite that system, because that system is set up so that you're not gonna be doing any learning, unless you believe in the military style of education, which I don't, which is to rip you down to shreds and then build you back up. And I think history has shown over and over again that does not actually work. It provides lots of casualties along the road, and we need to cater more specifically to how people individually learn. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this video and take a break. I know that was a lot of stuff. Again, I'm going to, all that material was about 6 hours video. If you want to go watch it in the other thing, mostly though for the boost, I just want to give you a number of things to think about. A number of things to go read about, some shows to go watch, and maybe kind of find your own way through that. So that'll wrap up this video. All right, let's take 5. Yeah. That's a good way too. Yeah. Yeah. We hardly listen. It's true. And different. It's still, those are some really great points. Those are some really great points. I like the idea of competitive teams. Yeah. Getting people, by a Udemy course on Dumbledore method. Listening is a skill. I do think, I think, let me just do a 5-minute break here. So I think, creativity and quiz. I have a problem with team learning. I'm just going to put it out there. I am not a very good team learner. This is why I wanted to be careful to say, don't do it my way. Find your way. If you are somebody who learns well in a team, then find other people who learn well in a team. If you like pair programming, everybody learns differently. We're all individuals. And I think that's the problem with the system. The system tries to peg us all with one, it takes these big swaths of paint on us and says, hey, you're all going to be learning this way. If there's one thing that I think could really change education, it would be moving to one-on-one mentorship, or even allowing people to find their own mentors, people they get along with. There's people who hate me. It would be horrible for me to be their teacher. And if you look back, you'll find a good teacher in there and you'll usually find that they were your mentor. But then there's other teachers. There's Victoria Mikhailovna. She's like my nemesis in college. I hated her. She made me, oh my God, in so many ways. And, so it's not about, and it's not always just about making it easy. I mean, I think progressive people get beat up all the time for being loosey-goosey and love, peace, love, and happiness. It doesn't have to be easy. They don't have to be easy on you. I would say Socrates was pretty hard on people. He forced them to answer the hard questions. It made them really frustrated. Socratic method really pisses you off when you go through it because you have to force yourself to answer your own questions and ask questions you don't want to ask. I mean, if you think about a lot of the psychology is based on Socratic method by reflective questioning, stuff like that. So I think, everyone's different. I am not a team learner. It doesn't mean that team learning is bad. It just means that I personally, if I'm put in a room with 10 people or 5 people even, and we all have to learn something, unless we're learning a team sport where we're like, kicking a ball around or something, I don't think I would do well with that. And the reason is because I have a very different learning style, and just the way that I browse the web and digest, we're going to go through all of that. So if you choose to learn that way and do your own research at the speed of light, great. But I feel bad forcing other people to learn my way. The other thing too, I've learned about putting a bunch of people together is the lowest common denominator scenario. When I'm teaching a classroom of 3 people or a classroom of 40 people, or I don't like the word teach because it's a transitive verb, but if I am helping them, I immediately have to cater to the lowest common denominator. That means that kid in the front who asked within the first 5 minutes while 40 people are waiting, I was out yesterday because I was sick. I had a dentist note. What do we do? And they have no problem raising their hand, and everybody else in the class looks at them and goes, "What the F? Do you think that you think it's okay to block the rest of our learning for the next 10 minutes while he just talks to you specifically in front of the whole class? Where do you come off?" So the point being that you're going to have people that are either not going to be natural learners, they're going to need really a lot of hand-holding. You have other people who don't, who are very independent, and they're all different. And so I think one-on-one mentored learning is the absolute best. I think it's the absolute best. I've played around with numbers and stuff. I actually wanted to start a school that was all 100% one-on-one mentoring, everything, every subject. And believe it or not, you can actually do it. You can actually do it. You would give about each professor or teacher would have like 60 or 70 students, and they would know all one-on-one, and they would meet with them for an hour a week, and you could cover all the subjects. You would actually pay less money too. It's crazy because it's really, really counterintuitive to do it because it puts a lot of the learning on them. Because it's people just they want to be handed something. The hardest part for education, and this is probably and we should probably get back on track here. The hardest part for education is actually the people who don't want to learn. And we didn't talk about that very much, but every time I have this conversation with somebody who's in the education system, who's been there for the longest time, and I've had several of them because I tried to go into the traditional education using something called the, oh God, what is it called? Oh, it has a name. I forget the name. They take you out of the enterprise, and then they kind of fast track you into the education system if you want to be a teacher and you're already in enterprise somehow. And I talked to a lot of teachers. Actually, started a business with a teacher, and they kept saying, if you want to help with education, help with the kids at home and other things like that, because so many of the people, at least in America, they're either they don't care about education because they don't know where they're going to get their next meal. Some of them, they have massive problems at home. Some of them are they have social problems. So education is not the top of their list. Some of the people rise from that and they realize, well, gosh, if I get an education, I can come out of this. But so many of them realize they can sell drugs and they're going to come out of it and they're going to have more money and they might have dead. But so the problem is a social issue. It's not an educational issue. This is why education and politics are so hand in hand. And these days, for better or worse, Jill Biden has been a traditional educator. It'll be interesting to see what she does with this in America. Because more of the same isn't going to do it. More of this, crowding 60 people in a classroom. Think about how many students come through an average high school for a single teacher. They have 400 or 500 students. There is no way learning can happen at that level. There's no way. There's just no way, because you have to be an autodidact and learn how to learn on your own and the fortunate ones get their own private mentors or tutors or something like that. And then they help them through the thing, because that teacher can't barely remember your name, let alone help you learn and adapt to your learning style. It's just not happening. So the traditional system is seriously broken. I'm going to say something before I go back on record, even though I'm kind of on record now. I personally, what I'm about to say is like really radical, and I don't want you to misjudge me, but I think that society is broken. I think that, I have a debate with this, a friendly debate with my wife on this about, I personally think, maybe because I feel it so strongly, I personally think that every human being on planet Earth has a social responsibility to mentor 1 to 10 other individuals at any given moment of time. And I think that if you were to go all the way back to the origins of humanity, that's how we learn. And what happened was with the agricultural age and some of the other inventions that came about, it was like, gosh, the farmers had no time. The farmers taught their trade on the field, right? But then you had school teachers that were specializing in school teaching, and everybody was all in the schoolhouse. And slowly, we started putting all of the responsibility for teaching everybody else into this glorified babysitter who actually really liked to read. It's like Little House on the Prairie kind of stuff, and we're going to give that person the responsibility. And not only that, we've gone so far in America. We've gone so far in America with this idea that it's the teacher's responsibility for my kid to learn, that we say, oh, those teachers, we even look down on teachers. It's everybody's job, like the ancient tribes. Exactly. And the problem is that we don't hold education and generational transfer of knowledge in sacred reverence anymore. We actually put it down. It's the smallest paid job in our society, except for some of the service jobs. And educators don't make any money. They're not respected, and they're actually attacked in America. And some of the other countries like Finland, the teachers are very, very well respected from what I've been hearing. And that documentary that I watched from Michael Moore, but yeah, you can take them with a grain of salt. But the facts of the matter are that they are attacking these things. Breaking Bad, yeah. So the problem is that that we look so far down. Breaking Bad, I haven't seen it. I need to start watching. I need to go watch it. The society, a teacher, an unemployed parent will yell at a teacher for not teaching their kid. And we've just, that's all I want to say about that. We have just 100% just divorced ourselves from the personal responsibility of helping somebody else learn something. Taking the time. In fact, it's gotten so bad that there's even people on Twitch that have said this. I've seen it, that said, why would I tell you how to do that? Or you'll just take my job. That kind of thinking, that kind of scarcity mentality is what's going to destroy humanity if we don't fix it. It will. If you think that you are going to lose out because you share what you know with somebody else, we are all dead. We are all dead because anyway. Let's take it to a good life. When in reality, a guy could be miserable all his life, not experiencing real education, personal growth. Right. And that's okay. So here's the good news, and we'll get back to this positive note. And when you go to school, you have signed a contract that you share education with your kid. If you look at the families where education works, the parents are spending a lot of time with their children doing the education at home. They're actually sitting at the table and they're helping them through their homework. I will never forget, I was so panicked in my physics class in high school, and my dad almost never helped me with my homework. My mom helped me somewhat, but I was a teenager. I was like 17 or 18 years old. I was in tears. I was in fucking tears. Sorry. On my drafting table, because I could not figure this physics homework out. And I felt so stupid. I had prided myself on being an independent learner. I just could not figure it out. And I got so my parents thought something was going on, and my dad saw me. My dad came down and he helped talk me through it. And I had just gotten so frustrated with this particular thing. And he, God bless him, I didn't spend a lot of time with him as a teen, but because he was working, he was supporting a family of 8 kids. And, but he took some time and he talked me through the problem, and that's the only time I can remember ever. He gave me the drafting table. He gave me all his old drafting equipment and everything. So he kind of facilitated me, but that's the only time ever that I remember him helping me with anything like academic wise. And I'll never forget it. And so the families where stuff is working, that's usually what's happening. So the education that we've talked about, the social contract between, and frankly, I don't think it has to be between parents and children. This is another thing too. So I don't know if this has a proper space or not. I think I'm going to make a video about this. I don't know if I should make a video about this or not right now. I'll just say it really quickly, but it does need to be talked about. There is something to. I kind of want to make a video about it. There's something to having an adult in a teen's life who is not a parent. I'm going to make a video. I feel like I need to make a video on this, and I don't know where it's going to go, but that sounds really weird, but I don't know how to say it. So let me I'm going to make a quick little video about this. This is not going to be a long one, but I do want to capture it as a Zettelcasted video. So be that adult in all right, so this sounds really cliche. I'm going to go ahead and start this. Okay, so this is going to sound really cliche, and I don't mean it to, but we were talking about learning, and I talked briefly about the social contract. I believe that would save humanity if we could do it, to have everybody who is an adult take a responsibility to help a young person learn who's not their kid. One or more people, and they don't have to be younger than them. They could be the same age as them. But in general, if society were to take on more of an active role in the education of everyone instead of making it the teacher's job, we are in our way, just like in the way of our children often. Is that what it is? The Eisenlug effect? Lung? So I don't know what this is. I'm not formally trained in education, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But what I've noticed over the last 8 years is that, and then before that, for the last 20 years, I've been a scoutmaster, and people make jokes about it all the time. But there's something about being the non-parent in a young person's life while they're growing up, where they can ask you questions, and there's a different dynamic. And anybody who's been a parent of teenagers for a while probably realizes this. Now, unfortunately, for me personally, I was not able to raise my own children as teens because they're with their mom. But I've had the very fortunate experience to be around, 500-600 young people at different times, growing up and asking the questions and sort of reflecting back to them their way of learning. And I just want to say, I just want to put a plea out there, I guess, to anyone to consider being, that person. You don't have to formalize it and like find somebody to say, hey, I'm going to be your mentor. I'm going to be your adult. No, it doesn't really work like that. It's just being, I think it's just more about being available, being available appropriately to answer questions for people. Sometimes it's a church group leader. I know people who are like youth pastors. I know, scout people. This is always tainted by the dark side. I don't even want to talk about that. People always talk about it. Just forget about that. Young people need adults in their life that are not their parents in order for them. It takes a village, like they say, right? And I know that, I've seen people learn from others. In my stepson too, I've seen him learn things from other adults. And so, it's a way that works. So we need more of that. If and I don't know how you would even make that happen for you. I just wanted to say in this like 5-minute video, be that adult if you can in some young learner's life. If you can't be it for, and I have watched over the last 8 years, I have watched frantic parents who, number one, don't know how to take care of their geek son or daughter because they don't even know what they're talking about. Or two, they can't communicate with them anymore because they're not respected or whatever. They have a disconnect. And it's right. You got to be really careful because sometimes they'll come to me with stuff that they wouldn't come to their parents about, in the classroom setting, of course, but they'll, after class or something, they'll ask questions. The point being is that you can still be that person to sort of bridge, you're not replacing the parent, obviously, but there's something about being, particularly a teenager, where they kind of need to latch on to other adults and make other adult relationships. And I'm sure there's a real academic explanation for why that is. I'm just talking practically from observation of that. So see if you can find that opportunity to do that for somebody else. Being available, but again, the receiver should also be at the ripe stage in mind and perspective to be able to learn from mentors. Yeah, very conscious training of the mind and practice way of learning. Yeah, they have to come to you. You can't really, right. You can't force it, right? And it's a really delicate thing. But I think if you look around, a lot of times uncles and aunts. I've seen uncles and aunts serve that role for the children of their siblings and stuff. So this is just I guess this video is just a plea to more adults to participate in just listening and learning for those people in their circle. Maybe find an opportunity that is, present for you to do it. If you want to give back and you don't know how to give back to society and, you're like, you don't want to just write a check to some charity or something. That's one way to do it. You don't have to be a full blown mentor to do that. You can just be available to some other person. That's all. All right, I'm going to take my 5-minute break now. But yeah, 8:05, huh? All right, where are we? Yeah, we'll take a quick break. You guys probably need one too. And then we'll do this, and then we had an hour left, and we'll do scientific method, and we'll get to that. That's gonna take all 25 minutes. But if we can get away with doing this entire learning to learn thing in 1 2-hour block, I think that's an improvement over the 6-hour one. So I'll be back in a bit. All right. Well, here's the cool thing. And we're gonna talk. Oh, I'm just gonna jump right into it. All right. 25 minutes on this. Again, this is 6 hours of content I've smashed down into 6 hours to like 2 hours. So, all right, let's do this. All right. It's hard. I'm sorry, I'm chewing on my espresso bean. You guys like those? Do you guys like chocolate covered espresso beans? What is this? I had to translate that. Whoever it was to show me. Somebody put that up there, and I was like, what is that? It was left in my buffer. That's now saved in the video. Whatever it means. I don't know what it means. I was like trying to figure out, like, what does this have to do? All right. So, I'm going to add another stream marker here. Becoming an autodidact. This is another one of those videos that I'm going to do. This is the short version. If you've done a search and you're finding me on YouTube right now, you probably found another 6 hours of videos about this topic. I have so much to say about becoming an autodidact because it's really, really important. So let's start simply. What is an autodidact? An autodidact is somebody who takes control of their learning. It's not just an independent learner. It's somebody who takes control of their learning to the point where they create a learning plan for themselves. That's an autodidact. All the greatest scientists in history have been autodidacts, mostly because nobody taught them, because they were inventing things that they couldn't learn from somebody else. So if you want to be an inventor, if you want to, push the boundaries of what's out there, you got to be an autodidact because it's the only way to learn. So how do you become an autodidact? Why you would want to do it? So first of all, becoming an autodidact, somebody who's, in charge of their own learning, and really in charge, and they're tracking themselves, they're doing their own self-assessment and all of that. Somebody who's doing that, automatically wins over everyone else. And this isn't a competition. I don't want to push you to feel like you're better than others. But the single greatest skill in all of technology, and I would suggest in any career, is learning how to learn quickly, effectively, and to track that learning and to stay connected. And so we're going to go through a number of things here right now about how at some point I gained some of these skills. I've had to ask myself going through doing this, what happened? What happened? How come Doris and I and others that I've talked to, we figured this out earlier. I still feel like I have a lot to learn about how to learn more effectively and quickly, but for some reason we learned it, even though the schools didn't teach it to us. And I'm like, why? Right? So, we just spent a whole video, ragging on traditional education and how you go to a school, but they don't really teach you how to learn. That you succeed. Those who succeed have learned how to learn despite the system, in spite of the system, not because of the system. Almost always, schools are not teaching you how to learn. They're doing whatever else they want to do, but they're not teaching you how to learn. And you end up learning, in spite of all of that. And that's particularly in college. People, college teaches you how to learn. That's bullcrap. College doesn't teach you how to learn. College rewards those who learn how to learn by giving them a big fancy credential at the end, but it doesn't teach them how to do the learning. And if you don't believe me, just go ask how many people you know who have dropped out of college because they say, it wasn't for me, blah, 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 because they never figured it out, or they decided it wasn't for them and that they wanted to learn a different way, including, Steve Jobs and however many other successful billionaires who decided college wasn't for them because they learned that they could learn all this stuff on their own, or they They didn't want to play by the rules of the system. And so, stop saying that college is teaching you how to learn. College rewards those who survive by filtering out the people who don't know how to learn on their own, who haven't figured it out. So it's like throwing you into the deep end of the pool and saying, you either learn how to swim or you're never going to be able to swim in a pool again. Oh, it sucks to be me. I'm not a swimmer. It's not really in my genes. I'll be a skateboarder instead. I mean, that's the kind of approach. I get bothered a lot by people who say that's what's going on. It's actually has nothing to do with it. So, to that end, what does it mean? Don't be afraid. You can teach yourself. You can learn how to not depend on others. You can be the person who's not going, into the cubicle and saying, "Hey, what's going on there?" by doing your own research. And we'll get to that. So, I don't know. I feel like tonight's been a little bit negative. And I want to try to stay positive. So I wanted to talk about, just give you some quick stories about how I learned to learn. And I'm going to leave these in this video. I'm going to give myself my timeline again. Where did my Pomo go? Why is my Pomo not starting? Pomo's not starting as usual. It usually starts better than that. Used to read books. Yes, I did. Yeah, I used to read books on Macs. That's another really big one. Boy, you've been listening. So I'm gonna tell some random stories from the time when I was really young, and I'm gonna try to tell them really quickly within 20 minutes of how I believed I sort of, despite myself, became something of an autodidact very, very early on. And what time is it? It's 8:12 right now, so we have 24 minutes. All right, so this is how it went. So first of all, I was born the oldest of 8. I don't want to tell you my whole life story, but I was born the oldest of 8. Of 8 kids as Mormon, and yeah, and we from a very early age, my mom was always putting stuff in front of us to do, activities to do, projects to do, coloring, whatever. We always had, whether or not you can credit the Mormons for that. Mormons are, they say the women stay home and the men go work. However you want to credit it, I don't know. I ended up benefiting from my mother, and Mother Day is coming up, and I'm very grateful to her for that. I wish I could express it properly, but she was always there to put stuff in my path. And more importantly, she was always there when I came home to answer my questions as I started to get into, I was a real big nerd. I got beat up a lot as a kid, and she was always there to answer my questions. So we'd have these really amazing conversations from when I was very young at home. And she would reflect back to me. She would use sort of Socratic method. In fact, I remember one time in particular where I was really struggling with something to find out what I wanted to believe in and everything. And she said, well, what do you think? And she did the whole Socratic thing to me. So we had these really great conversations. Sometimes it would get a little bit argumentative because we would push each other. And so from the very beginning, we had that sort of Socratic dialogue happening in the house. My mother, I would never have categorized her as a tyrant. She, even though she was conservative, she really wanted us to dialogue a lot. And we had a lot of talk in the home. And she was always buying us science kits and stuff like that and putting those in front of us. And even though we didn't have the money for it, they bought a computer when I was very young, and we were able to use the computer. And I was able to experiment with the computer and read about it and break it and everything. And then, so probably the first real autodidactic experience I had was Dungeons and Dragons. So I played D&D. And Dungeons and Dragons is all about learning. It's all about learning. And I don't know if I was attracted to it because I was already into learning, or if it was because I was in it. I actually ended up learning a lot. And so I have to mention that if you're working with your children or you don't put it down, man. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons teaches you have to do a lot of reading. You have to do a lot of research. You're being put in a situation where you have to problem solve all the time. You have to come up with how to problem solve. You have to do a lot of math to do the calculations for this and that sort of thing. And so it really pushed, before computers were even a thing, it really pushed the boundaries. And there's a lot of Stephen Colbert and a lot of other people who have played Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not saying go play Dungeons and Dragons today. I'm saying there was something about role playing and setting up that environment. I actually have set up role play situations for my kids when they were young and presented them with social dilemmas between the high elves and the woodland elves, for example, and let them role play that out and deal with the conflict. So I believe that really helped me because there was nobody going to teach it to me. I had to read about it. So that was it. And then probably, but right before that, I had a teacher, Mr. Polson. I talk about him, who was a policeman, and he had. I believe I never really got the full story, but he had been wounded in 5th grade and 6th grade. Before that, he had been wounded. He walked with a limp, and he started teaching 5th and 6th grade in elementary. And he took it upon himself, yeah, that returned. Oh, wow. I don't know. So what I wanted to say about him is he was not born to be a teacher. He became a teacher because of the situation. He was done with the police life, and he was one of the happiest, most joyful people I've ever met. He'd probably seen some of the worst atrocities ever, but you never saw that on his face. He was just always so sweet and he, and it was not in any inappropriate way. He was just this amazing man. In fact, he took it upon himself to help us learn the law system, the legal system. He got awards from the state. I don't know how I got so lucky. I kept getting these teachers that were really great. So Mr. Polson had received awards for his he had this entire jurisprudence system that he set up in his elementary school, 5th and 6th grade, and you could study to become a lawyer. And we did everything. We put the robes on and everything. And I went on to become a judge and an appellate judge. And we had to learn the processes. In 6th grade, we learned the processes of how law works. I swore to God I was going to be an attorney at that point. They actually let us try actual cases for the school that were backed up by the principal. And we would sit there in our little room. I remember I knocked a girl's pencil case off of the desk on accident. She sued me. True story. She sued me. Vicki Adams. I'll never forget. And I was like I was terrified because I was now the subject of a lawsuit. And I was like, how am I ever going to do anything here? And I mean, I was really, really scared. So I ended up having to defend myself, and I won the case, but I had to do, that I did this and this, but my God, they were like grilling me and everything. I had a, I don't know. She was not a very bad person. She knew it was an opportunity to have a case, and she just thought it would be fun. And I hope, I gotta tell you, for me, it was very real. I was really scared. This is like 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, I became one of the first appellate court judges on our school's Supreme Court. And so I had, my little thing, and I got to wear, but Mr. Polson didn't just do that. He would bring in limestone and sulfuric acid and let us play with it and see what happens when you put the acid on the limestone. He was all about experiential learning. Yeah. He was all about experiential learning. He was like, let's see what happens here. He was all about, and he had no official, he had this huge chess set. The pieces were as big as half of one of us kids, and we had to lift the chess pieces up and move them. And I was obsessed with chess because of that. So basically, this teacher, who wasn't a teacher, who was a policeman, was early in my life. And he went on to do all kinds of things. He came to my mission farewell, but he was just there with me the whole time. He used to say things to my mom and dad that would make me feel really good about myself, even though I was a big old geek with big old, buck teeth and everything. Yes, it is. That is me. And so then we went on from there, and I would after that we would be. I went on to that. I went on to middle school, and middle school was hard. It was really hard. I got beat up every day, and so I'm going to make it in time. This has a point, I promise. So I did. I got beat up by one Tim Hansen in particular, who I think was being beaten at home by his dad. Don't know where he is. I think he's in prison now. But anyway, so he would beat me up and crumple up my hat that I would wear. I'd wear a derby because it was cool and I was a nerd. And he would throw it on the ground. This was like, an 80s sitcom. And I was going through all the changes of puberty. I was just really frustrated with everything and didn't know who I wanted to be or what. I had 2 sets of headgear, big pop bottle glasses. I'll show you a picture of it. And I was at the bottom of the barrel in terms of social things. And it was Mr. Bevins, who ran the media center, who would let me into, I told this story before, but he would let me in early. He knew, for some reason, he just knew, and he would let me in early. And it wasn't some weird thing. He would let me use the Atari 400 in the middle school, and it was the only computer in the whole middle school that I knew of, other than the principal maybe. And he let me use that thing, and he let me code BASIC on that thing, and I taught myself BASIC in the mornings rather than getting beat up. I would go in there and I would do that, and he gave me the opportunity to do that. He was just there. He was just there. This isn't a case. It's an opportunity where an adult was just aware. They didn't have to talk to me. He didn't have to, do anything. It's like that, it's like the janitor from Breakfast Club or something. He just was there. And I was able to get into the computer stuff, and I was able to build up my confidence, and actually brought soccer to the school. They'd never played it before. It's a true story. My middle school had never once played the game soccer, and I was obsessed with it. I actually bought skateboarder gloves in order to be the goalie because you couldn't get any of that stuff back then. Yeah. And so I ended up, at that same time, by the way, I met a friend. I heard about this game where you could do whatever you wanted to, and that was D&D. And I met one of my best friends of all time, Michael Catton, who's now a very successful head, nose, and throat surgeon in Logan, Utah. He has a great family now, and that led to meeting other people and other stuff. But then but this is the most important thing about middle school, is I got identified early by my middle school. And this is where I think it's unfair, because I was a white kid in, a middle-class suburban neighborhood. And I got identified for the G&T, the quest, the gifted talent quest. If you've seen Malcolm in the Middle, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not Malcolm, but I got able to go to a class where Mr. Lundquist, who taught that class, taught it completely differently. And I'm going to make an observation right now. So the real learning that we've talked about, the real learning that is happening in our educational system is happening at the edges of the spectrum. It's the kids that the school system has decided to throw away because they're expelled or doing drugs or they're gang banging and all of that stuff. The teachers of those people are given absolute carte blanche. Whatever you can do to keep them here, you can do whatever. And so there's some very creative, amazing stories about how those people have really excelled, because the school system, the traditional system's like, they're not working in the system, so you figure it out. And so they've given some of these teachers the ability to really, really test the limits of education and find the true way to learn. And the other end of the spectrum is the people that are too smart for the system, so to speak, that are quickly identified, or they're getting beat up or something like that, and they don't fit into the mainstream. And so they get this own, we had our own special class, our own special room that we could go into. Our classes where you had to identify a project and you had to report on your project. They taught us Bloom's taxonomy. My teacher, Mr. Lundquist, taught us how to learn. My teacher, Mr. Lundquist, taught us the skills of a teacher. He taught us what teachers were taught, the psychology of learning, how to set up criteria, how to not intervene in the creative process too early and come back later and apply a system of criteria to this creative flow so as to not stifle anything. He taught us all these otherwise adults sort of learning topics that were taught to him as a professor, and he taught us those skills. He didn't teach us any specific subject. He taught us those things, and then he said, now go learn. What is it that interests you? Go figure it out and learn it. And that's very Socratic. So I was super fortunate, and to this day, I am grateful to him for having taught us that method when I was in 5th and 6th grade. And then, in high school, I went up, I learned many other things. High school was really hard for me as well, but it was also the time when I started getting popular. I don't want to go into that, but I grew up and stuff. And I wasn't doing drafting as much anymore. I was in the band and executive council and dancing all the time and skating and soccer team and tennis and blah, blah, blah. And it was basically my opportunity to kind of come out of being a nerd. And and that's, at that time I was learning, but what I was learning was through experience as well, but it was in the social sphere. It wasn't in the academic sphere. That was more of a learning through experience, socially. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, other than that, in college, I realized really quickly that it was going to be in the honors curriculum. And let me just say something too. If you guys are in college, don't be afraid of the honors curriculum if you're going to go, because the honors curriculum, even if you don't graduate with honors, they get their own building. So when I was in college, they had this thing called a Mazer building, and you could either go to a history class with 500 people learning American heritage history, or you could go to the honors history class where there was a class of 20 people with 3 professors, and they let you discuss the we watched Bill Moyer's interviews with Joseph Campbell, and we would talk about, what were the social influences behind history, and we were able to discuss those things, and the quality of education I got in that thing. The other thing that's crazy that people don't realize, in a lot of history class, a lot of honors classes, the honors class is actually easier than the straight list class, because in the big class, they have to have really strict criteria. You have to do this to pass, blah, blah, blah. But in the honors class, they can be like, hey, did he participate? Yes. Okay. What is this paper like? And you get graded on one paper to see how, innovative your thinking is on that particular thing. So I actually got to participate in the honors education at the college that I was at, which was great because it was a Mormon university, and there was anything but Mormon in that honors program. I actually had to defend a professor once because he taught some of the actual mythology, the African mythology, during the coming of age mythology about young boys waking up and having the hut, their African hut, like 100 feet in the air because their penis is so big. This is actually mythology from coming of age mythology, and they taught this in this history class. And they started grilling him. I had to come justify it. He actually personally asked me to come speak to a class of like 50 people about how I felt the history class had, and understanding the mythology behind all of these, these different societies, no matter how strange it might be for Western culture, was okay, and that it wasn't non-Mormon, and that he shouldn't be kicked out of the school for teaching about, African teenagers with large penises waking up. That's a true story. Most of my worst mistakes is pursuit of girls and getting drunk. Yeah. Well, and yeah, when we're teens, we're making all kinds of problems. So, everything else has just come from that. I don't really understand. I've always been a practical person. I don't know if that's just because I can't get my head around the theory. I've met people who have the ability to really get their head around the theory and do crazy, amazing things. A story about learning Russian. I did graduate with a Russian degree, and I had an opportunity to either pay $4,000 for a study abroad, or I could go work for this company if I got the job. I was really glad I did. And it was after I'd been a river guide. And so they liked that I had river guide experience. And so they gave me the job to go to Russia and become a cruise director and a translator. And so I was able to learn Russian better than any of the people who did study abroad and make money, because I had to translate for Russian mob bosses who came on the ship and try to have our big, Paul Bunyan CFO, not, start a fight with the guy and translate for them. I had a lot of like direct positive experiences, which I won't go into now, using Russian in the trenches because I had to, not like every other kid who went to do study abroad and paid all this money and then got a dorm room, with their buddy and just spoke English the whole time and didn't come back with any knowledge. That's true story. And so, being thrown into this situation and learning from it. So that was another opportunity for that. I actually started my own business in college. I noticed there was nobody providing flashcards for the Russian language roots. And so I started making my own. I was like, man, somebody else might benefit from these. And so I made a HarperCard application, and I started Sterling Scholastic Aids, and I sold these. Didn't make any money off them really, but I just started selling these cards. So I think it's really about having the courage to just jump in. It's like to jump in and don't be afraid of failing. You're gonna fail, but you're not gonna fail that badly, right? And you guys remember HyperCard? Yeah. So that's a good thing to end on, though, even though it changed my time here. Is the role of imagination and creativity when we're learning. So I just want to make the point, and I've only got 5 minutes left, that back to the D&D thing, I cannot overstate how valuable I find imagination and creativity to be to the act of learning. Because if you can't think about, well, what's this possibility? What if? And we're going to get into that later. You're not going to be able to identify all the possibilities that might be there. And I'm a very mathematical kind of guy, but math is actually very creative too, because you have to kind of think of different ways to solve it. So don't discount the act of imagination and creativity. And if you really want to read a lot more about that, that's Sir Ken Robinson, Out of Our Minds. He talks specifically about the role of creativity in all forms of learning, and how important it is to do that. Fail better, fail faster. Yes. Yeah, we should probably revise that. So I'm gonna wrap up this video. Mostly, I wanted to give everyone permission. Raritan's not here today, but I was editing this line right here, and he said, leave that in there. Because I said, stop being afraid. Take the time to teach yourself. Write your own program. Your own program for learning. And we're going to talk about some ways to do that next. So the scientific method is a big part of that. The RWX method builds on that. These are some specific things that have been proven, not by me, but by history, to work when it comes to learning. And that is something that schools do teach. They do teach the scientific method, but I don't think they teach people to follow the scientific method in their day-to-day lives with regard to knowledge acquisition and things. So stop being afraid, teach yourself, and learn to not depend on others. There's nothing wrong with sharing your knowledge with others and gleaning it from them, but don't depend on them. Try your hardest to become an independent person, and that's the way to go. All right. That is the end of that stream. I'm going to take a break, and when we come back, I have a half an hour. We'll talk about, book topics. Yeah, well, okay. So if you want the books to get here, and the books, I'll always put the books in the boost. The books will be listed in the boost if they're not now. Out of Their Minds from Sir Ken Robinson. Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is very hard to read, but it's worth it. Oh, it took me forever to read. It's a tiny little book, but it took a long time. I have to go through my bookshelf and go look. There's a few others. I mean, what's his name? There's the one from the chess player. That was pretty good. It's kind of like, yeah, okay. My mom would never copy from anyone else. Well, there you go. I mean, all that stuff's going to be in the repo. Yeah, the repo's kind of organically growing. I only barely added it, right? So I have over 1,200 at this point, probably individual little sort of Zettel pages that I've collected over the years, and I finally have a way to organize them, and they'll all be making it back into the boost and into my Zettelcast, then, so you guys can search it and read my book list and all that stuff. I've got a lot of other stuff in there, and but more importantly, I want you to find stuff that affects you. You find, I'm just giving you some stuff, but you may find that you respond a lot to a different kind of person, right? So. And yeah, I mean, there's just, we live in a wonderful time, right? I mean, I practically lived at the library as a kid. I would miss the bus. My wife and I have that in common. She used to love that too. But she goes, yeah, I would get stuck in bookstores forever. But you know what? See, here's the thing though. How do you? Well, I gotta take a break. But how do you make that happen? You ever wonder that? I've been really wondering. There's people who legitimately do not like bookstores. They don't like them. And they would think that we're just a bunch of nerdy geeks. How can I? But see, Ken Robinson suggests that everybody has a natural love of learning, and that it's beaten out of us when we're young. And Paulo Freire says the same thing. That in the home is where oppression starts. That the people that live in homes where free thought is encouraged early on are the ones that are rewarded going forward. The people who live in homes who are very dogmatic, like this is how we do it in our house and stuff like that. I mean, you got to have, boundaries and stuff, but those households are regularly lead to people who get into the school system and say, well, that's just how it is. And then the whole system just keeps churning out oppression. And by the way, oppression doesn't always mean somebody's beating you down. One of the most interesting things, it's a side note, so I'll just say it during the break, just to see dinosaur books. Me too. I loved it. Bookstores are boring, my ex. Yeah. One of the things that I just gave me, oh yeah, right. I know. It's one of the worst things about COVID, right? But then we have the internet right now, so you can go look at it. This is why I'm spending so much time on this, exchange of ideas. The perfect internet for me would be able to have a knowledge exchange grid or graph where everybody can subscribe to everybody else, and if you have a new idea, you get a notification, and if I make a Zettel, I can follow you and I can see your Zettel that you just posted, and like, oh, that's an interesting thought. So it's just like, I know, and I'm going to show you how to do the RSS feed. Okay, I'm kind of giving away some stuff. You can actually add. I'll do a video about this, but you can add on the Boost. Yeah, the Jess Platter book. Yep, that's the one. And it's a pretty good book, but it's kind of like meh. I mean, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, it wasn't really anything I didn't already know. I mean, but it's nice. It's a book. So that's what I'm saying. Every book is going to speak to somebody differently. Same with Sam Harris's book. Not Sam Harris. That was a different one. He's the atheist guy. Yeah, I did too. So I was like, okay, whatever. Some people probably might like it. What was the other one? Oh, I can't remember now. What was I talking about? Oh, RSS feeds. So, you can actually you can add it. I'm going to show you, I don't know when, but I'm going to show you how you can add an RSS reader to Chrome or Edge or whatever, and you can follow my commits to my Zettelkasten and to the Boost, and you'll get a pop-up every time I commit a new thought. And I want that. I want that for your thoughts. When you guys say something new that's interesting, I just want to see a notification come up that tells me that you said something interesting. It's way better than Twitter. Yeah. So it's actually not very hard to put in. And in fact, I was wondering where it was coming from. Mine was like popping up on my work computer. My work computer was, every time I was saving a Zettel, it was like popping up with the title of the Zettel on my work computer. And I was like, how is that happening? And I remembered that I had been playing around with an RSS plugin on here, and it was like a little Windows notification would pop over and it would show me the title of the Zettel and say a recent commit. And then I remembered that I had added this plugin. So the reason I'm so happy about this is because I had been planning on making infrastructure to do all of this stuff instead of just using GitHub for everything. And GitHub has really met that need. Now it is centralized. I get it, but that's something we can do. If you go to a technologist webpage and they have an RSS feed, you know you're in the right place. Well, the problem is that so many people got rid of RSS for a long time. RSS actually has many, many problems, and I don't want to get into that right now. Yeah, it would be popping up all the time. Yeah, but here's the thing. There's like one or two people where if they say something, you want to hear what they want to say. Like TJ Hollowaychuk tweets anything, I want to read it. He's the one who taught me to do Go without even knowing it, because he switched in 2014 and now I learned Go. So there are a certain number of people that I would want to go. RSS really didn't work because it was too much to take in. There's just so much data out there. But to me, that's also kind of the equivalent of a store, of a library, or because if it's the right people are in the feed, you can limit it out and get the good stuff. It's not just Twitter. One of the best things about it is that you can read more. But RSS as a technology has a lot of flaws. Did you know that RSS was partially invented by Aaron Schwartz when he was 15 years old? Same guy who co-invented Reddit, and then was killed, frankly, by the FBI. We're going to talk about Aaron Schwartz at some point. I don't know when. Yeah. Well, the RSS you get to pick. Yeah. So, yeah. Did I get you read about him? We didn't mention him. So, I'm actually going to do a video just about Aaron Schwartz right after this. The reason, all right, let me take a break. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to take another 5-minute break because I didn't take a break. I tell you what, I'm going to take a 5-minute break and we'll come back. And then the last video will be about him. I don't think we're going to get into the techniques tonight. Yeah, this is probably a good cut paste because this is all technique tomorrow. So today has been largely motivational, and here's why you want to learn and stuff. That's been the goal. And tomorrow we'll get into the nuts and bolts. In fact, I should probably just go ahead and do the Aaron Schwartz video right now. And we can just wrap. Let's do that. Okay, so all right, so I'm going to do a video just about him. Did I spell his name right? I always spell it wrong. Yeah. Okay, so we're wrapping up tonight. This day 2 has been largely motivational. Hopefully, it's been designed. It's been more about learning to learn and wanting to learn, and trying to give you guys some motivation in that regard. And before we go, let me just start this poem. It doesn't start anymore. I have to keep starting it. My poem. I gotta have my tomato. Oh my god. But before we go tonight, though, I want to take about 5, 10, 15 minutes and talk about probably the greatest motivational influence in my life. I'm going to have a hard time talking about this. I'm already getting a little bit verklempt, whatever they call it, right? So Aaron Schwartz, who is this guy? And if you don't watch anything else in this video and you just want to skip it, go watch The Internet's Own Boy. Somebody have the URL for us? Go watch on YouTube. It's free. The Internet's Own Boy, and it's called. It's a documentary about Aaron Schwartz. It talks about probably the greatest example of an autodidact I have ever experienced. And if you watch the documentary, in full, you will see what I mean. Aaron is, this entire boost is dedicated to him every year because for many reasons that he's not with us anymore. I gotta tell you, make sure that you're okay with crying if you watch it, because it is a sad story. It's a tragedy, but it's a tragedy that brings so many important truths to the surface. And so who is he? I'll just cut to the chase. So Aaron at 15, co-authored the Creative Commons license with Lawrence Lessig, professor of constitutional law at Harvard. He was one of the original creators of the RSS feed. He created Wikipedia at least 5 years before Wikipedia came out. From the very early age, he was speaking before any of his other siblings, and he regularly organized learning opportunities for all of his brothers and everybody in his area. And his favorite thing to do was to set up instructional materials and help people learn, because he loved learning from the time he was an infant. And you've got to see the video to see him running around. He's just so amazingly fascinated with learning. And he always was. He was, he was at MIT. He believed that information should be free. He didn't do anything illegal until when he was at MIT. He did something that was questionable. It wasn't illegal, which led to a bunch of drama in his life. The guy activated an entire segment of the population to overturn legislation almost single-handedly. That's almost never been done. But most importantly, Aaron is, he created Reddit, by the way. Co-founded Reddit. So, I mean, if he were here today, I've just got to ask myself, what would he be doing? And if there's anything that I can do to help more Aaron Schwartzes in the world to, make themselves known, whether they're male or female or anything in between, find your way and find your way to learn despite the circumstances. He was always that person, and he really set that up. So on that note, I do want to show you the video. I'm not going to open the whole video up right now because I just want to, as I said, I wanted to keep these videos nice and short and sweet. So this is, I don't know if this is the same one. There he is. There's Mr. Aaron. The world wasn't always comfortable. And he wasn't always, when he got older, he wasn't always very happy either. He was kind of short with people, but when he was young, he was really, I mean, he was just out there. He's been doing a lot of things. And that's all I have to say. So this boost every year, and a big part of my life is dedicated to the memory of Aaron Schwartz, to keeping his work going forward, which isn't hacking, by the way. People, this is what got him in trouble. His life happened at the same time that Anonymous was happening when it first started, and there was a huge crackdown in everybody that was, challenging the status quo, and unfortunately, that meant that he got lumped in with a bunch of illegal hackers and stuff. Even though he was very, above board on the stuff that he did, he was not the kind of person to be categorized as a hacker by any means. He could have been. That's one of the reasons I love Aaron so much, is that he had full capacity to leverage his skills in whatever way he wanted to, and he chose to go the official yet, sort of challenging revolutionary way, and it worked. It worked. He actually was able to overturn legislation about things. He was able to release documents that were public documents that were being held for ransom behind corporate firewalls that you had to pay to get to those documents. And so he found every legal loophole possible to expose that. People would go to the library with their computers and they would organize and they would download all of this knowledge and they would put it out there, and then they would put it out on the internet. And these companies didn't like that because they lost millions of dollars from what the stuff that they did. But the knowledge was all supposed to be public record. It was supposed to be freely available to anyone. And yet all the 1% corporations and stuff had hidden it away. And so he took it on himself to do that. Another thing that really makes me like him, and I'll end with this, is when he was in Y Combinator, I think, and he got picked up as he had a different thing he was working on, and his project got bundled in with Reddit. Condé Nast, the magazine company, bought Reddit, and there's one story in this movie I'll never forget where they talk about everybody else was partying in Condé Nast, and he was like uneasy because there was so much work to be done, and he was like, why are we partying here? This is just the beginning of all this work. And he just was constantly acting with a sense of urgency. In fact, it bothered him so much that, as one person in the movie describes it, he climbed the crap heap of Silicon Valley, went to the top, plucked the rose, and climbed back down again. Because he ended up back at MIT. He's like, I cannot do this Silicon Valley stuff. This is crazy. Nobody's doing anything here. It's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And he went back to, and right after that, that was when he helped promote some of the more Creative Commons stuff with Lawrence Lessig, who is, Lawrence Lessig, by the way, is one of the human beings that I actually had a dream with Lawrence Lessig, Aaron, and who else was in it? It says a lot about me. I don't know if I should say it, but I actually had a really good dream, not a sexual dream, with Aaron, Lawrence Lessing, and I can't remember who the other two people were, but we were all just talking over beer. That was it. And I woke up and I thought I was on cloud nine. I was like, what? I mean, with the idea of being able to rub shoulders with some of these great minds, and I mean, I don't mean that in the, you know, the pompous, you know, sense. I mean in the sense of people who have actually taken these problems of the earth on, of humanity, and dedicated their life to making it better. And that's my, I suppose that's my fantasy, is to be a part of that. And I know that sounds like a self-important statement. I don't mean it to. I just, this is what motivates me every day. This is what keeps me up at night, is trying to figure out how to make information more accessible, how to motivate people to want that information and to do good things with it. I know that sounds really cliche. I don't mean it to, but it's sincere. It is sincere. I legitimately put off playing Witcher to do these kind of things, and that's why I'm doing the boost. So if that's something you'd like to become aware of, we haven't got any legs under it yet, but I'm trying in my free time to kick off a foundation called AFK Works, which is the Association for Federated Knowledge Workers, which would be a bunch of people who have this common value, who want to help knowledge workers share how they do their job, how they share knowledge, and to promote the exchange of knowledge all over the world, not just with the 60% of the world who has internet access, but everybody. And that's something I really take to heart. I'm not dead yet. I got some time left to work on this. I certainly don't have the money. If I did, I have all kinds of ideas about how I would do this, but the best I can do is get on Twitch and YouTube and send a message to everybody. So in honor of Aaron Schwartz and his best buddy, Lawrence Lessing, I'm going to close out this day, this Cinco de Mayo. There's no better day to talk about speaking truth to power and spreading knowledge and giving people permission to learn on their own terms, despite what the system might tell them what to do. To the fantasy version of himself, I probably did. Yeah. Yeah. My ex-wife, if she was watching this, she'd laugh her ass off. She'd be like, you think you're so important, and you just, I can, this is the thing about ex-wives. They never leave you. She's in my head because I got married on May 1st. So, my ex-wife, it's like, it's what happens when you get divorced, is you got these things that like play over and over and over in your head. All the things that they would nag you about, all the things that they would say. That's how you know that it was a good thing that you got an ex-wife now. If you put that movie on the watch list, I am going to warn you right now, it is a tearjerker. It's very informative. It's very inspirational, and it is a huge tearjerker. Aristotle, I think, was the one who said that tragedy is the best form of art because of its motivation. It motivates you, which is one of the reasons. If you're gonna put another one on the list, I've got a whole movies list, my top 5 movies. You know, if you want another tragedy, don't watch it in the same night. Robin Williams is hands down my favorite actor. And Dead Poet Society is Dead Poet Society is another movie that is good to talk about today, because Dead Poet Society is about a teacher who comes in. He's always whistling the themes of Revolution, which is, by the way, also the theme song from V for Vendetta. City Slickers is a good one too. Yeah, not a sad one. The book was great. Yeah. I didn't read the book. I did not read the book. So, here's another couple of movies if you want to get all revolutionizing, okay? V for Vendetta, even though it's become the sort of cliche Mask of Anonymous, is really, really good. If actually, the Money Heist, it's on Netflix right now. That's a pretty good series too. If you want to like start thinking about Revolution and things like that, I really, really love V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta is the reason Natalie Portman is my all-time favorite actress. she's just amazing in that movie, and I mean, not to mention Hugo Weaving. He's like so amazing. V for Vendetta, Dead Poets Society, Contact, and those are the ones that come to mind right away. Those are in my top 5 or so. So yeah. Well, about to wrap up here. I'm gonna go walk the dog at 9:00, so I'm gonna end right on time today. With real tears too. Yeah. Did she have her really hair? I did not know that. Yeah, that show is amazing. And John Hurt. I mean, come on. The acting in V for Vendetta is just over the top. It's so well done. You know, I'm gonna have to go watch it tonight. It is Cinco de Mayo. Actually, tonight would probably be the night to go watch. Anything with a Latin American revolutionary in it. It would be the day to honor Paulo Freire. Zorro, yeah, you go watch Zorro. I like the real one. Three Amigos. Oh God, yeah. Would you say I have a plethora? That's my favorite line in the whole show. Would you say I have a plethora? Anyway. Motorcycle Diaries. I started watching. Why didn't I finish that? I can't remember. I gotta pull that one up. If you guys have good movies, we need to make a community movie list. Yeah. Like of movies that go with the topics. Mm-hmm. When the boost gets going a little bit more, if you guys want to make a pull request, another reason to use GitHub, right? So you guys can make a pull request and edit on stuff that you need to. Oh yeah, you're gonna get repos out. Look, Ivory, I've got all of this content all written someplace else, so it's just a matter of time before it gets in there because I have to filter that content out, and I'm gonna be doing that on the weekends, right? So we'll get that. It's I'm gonna go walk the dog. So let's go raid somebody. Strigger's on. Maybe give him a raid today. Thank you for the participation. And I'm gonna walk the dog. And I'm gonna come back and chop up some movies, and I'll put this up. But you can go back and watch the VOD anytime, of course. If you don't make it in time. Oh, see, this is great. I love that you guys are putting this stuff in here. Oh, Good Will Hunting. I like Good Will Hunting, but it tries too hard. But it is good. I like it a lot. Yeah, there's a couple moments in there when it's a little bit. Oh, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I forgot that. That's definitely my top 5. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. If you have not seen when you watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you will like. That's the first time a lot of those actors were ever in anything, and they all became famous. And there's actors in there that you'll recognize. Yeah, like including like the professor from Back to the Future, stuff like that. You saw the play? Oh wow, cool. Yeah, I wish I could say that. Yeah, I'm not that good. Definitely Fight Club. Yeah. Do you know what convinced me to watch Fight Club is that Mr. Robot Sam Ishmael. Yeah, that's Jack Nicholson's best movie of all time. Fight Club. I mean, I was into it, but I had heard of it and everything, but I didn't really want to watch it until I saw that Sam Ishmael's, I don't know how to say his name. I think it's Ishmael, that he was inspired. One of the movies he was inspired by was Fight Club. And if you know Mr. Robot, I don't give it away, but if you know Mr. Robot, there's a big aspect that's directly in correlation with Fight Club. In fact, Mr. Robot is kind of like an homage to a bunch of other really, really great movies and books. That makes me want to go read some more. What's his face? The mustache guy from the 70s. The mirrors or the universe or gateways to other universes. What's his name? That's not Heidegger. What is his name? Oh yeah, Mr. Robot's amazing. Mr. Robot's my all-time favorite series ever. No. It's you won't get it. It's if you watch Mr. Robot, you have to. Mr. Robot has multiple layers. You gotta have to see it a long time. Yeah, take care. I'm gonna. Schitt's Creek is nice. We were just watching it. My wife is addicted to it. She's watched it so many times now. Schitt's Creek pulls it off because the acting is so amazing. Yeah, my wife she's seen it like 3 times now in a row, back to back. She can't stop watching it, and she's really intelligent. She just loves the good plot, and but the acting is apparently just over the top in that show. So good ideas for things to go watch tonight, I guess. Who should we rate? He's getting distracted from doing what he needs to do. New York C4. You did? You met Slater? Oh God, who am I gonna raid? Who are we gonna raid? You guys have anybody to raid? It doesn't have to be a tech person. I mean, I like raiding people in science and tech, but I also like raiding other people. And my favorite is to sneak up on people like Elmer Fudd and raid them. Tom Selleck, he's good. I used to watch Magnum PI every night at like 1 a.m. when I was supposed to be in bed on my tiny little black and white TV in the 80s. I did. That's a true story. But I'm here now. Dapper King, why are you not... Who's that? Who's this? I'm really important. So we go open that person. Am I going to regret this? We raided a hot tub girl once. Trump stays banned. I don't know this person. We stand C-SPAN. Politics and World Wide Web. Interesting. It was really funny because she was like, "Oh, look at all these nerds." That's not a complete exaggeration. It was a little weird because I mean I'm an old guy in my picture. I'm sure she was freaked out. Oh, hey, wait. Yeah, it's like, who's this old creepy dude raiding me? Who's that? I'm open to raid anyone. This is just something fun that Twitch people do. Hacker, programmer, educator. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, we're gonna raid this guy right now. I'm gonna follow him too. He seems pretty cool. Why haven't I seen him before? I can't talk. I gotta go walk the dog. Please tell him hello, and I'll come back and watch him now that I know he's there. Good. I love ethical hacking in my spare time. There's Mr. Strager. Mr. Strager is always good to watch too. Everybody knows that. So we'll raid somebody else. So I like Strager. He's grump like me in different ways. But see you later, guys. To the rest of you also, thank you. All right. Bye.